Yesterday at the Emirates, Arsenal and Crystal Palace played out a 1-1 draw that felt like much more than just a point shared. It was one of those nights where football reminded us that control doesn't always guarantee victory, and belief can keep a team alive even when everything seems stacked against them. The scoreboard says 1-1, but the story underneath was full of tension, frustration, hope, and unanswered questions for both sides. Arsenal came into this game knowing that every match now carries weight. The title race, the pressure, the expectations from fans, and the need to respond after recent performances all sat heavily on their shoulders. From the very first whistle, you could feel that urgency. Arsenal dominated possession early, pinning Crystal Palace back into their own half, moving the ball quickly, trying to stretch the pitch and force mistakes. The Emirates was loud, confident, almost expecting a breakthrough rather than hoping for one. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, arrived with a very different mindset. This was about discipline, survival, and moments. They stayed compact, lines tight, bodies behind the ball, absorbing wave after wave of Arsenal pressure. Palace didn't try to match Arsenal's tempo. Instead, they waited. They trusted their shape. They trusted that frustration would creep in if Arsenal didn't score early. And eventually, Arsenal did find a way. The opening goal felt like relief more than celebration. It came from sustained pressure, the kind Arsenal fans have grown used to seeing under Mikel Arteta. The build-up was patient, the movement sharp, and when the ball finally hit the back of the net, the stadium exploded. It felt like the game was about to open up, like Arsenal were about to turn dominance into a comfortable win. But football rarely follows the script you expect. After the goal, Arsenal continued to control the game, but something subtle began to change. The intensity dipped just a little. The passes became safer, the urgency faded into comfort. Crystal Palace sensed it. You could see it in their body language. They started stepping forward more confidently, pressing higher, committing numbers on the counter. They weren't creating much at first, but they were growing into the game, minute by minute. Palace's equalizer was a moment that silenced the Emirates in seconds. One lapse, one defensive hesitation, one well-timed move, and suddenly, the ball was in the net. Against the run of play? Yes. Unexpected? Absolutely. Unfair? That depends on how you see football. Palace took their chance. Arsenal didn't take enough of theirs. From that moment on, the match completely changed emotionally. Arsenal went from control to anxiety. Palace went from survival to belief. The crowd tried to lift the home side, but there was tension in every touch. Arsenal pushed forward, throwing bodies into attack, testing the Palace goalkeeper, forcing blocks, winning corners, but something was missing. That final decision, that calm finish, that killer instinct. Crystal Palace defended with heart. Every tackle felt like a statement. Every clearance felt like a small victory. They weren't just holding on, they were fighting for every inch of grass. And when they broke forward, even if it didn't lead to a goal, it reminded Arsenal that one more mistake could cost them everything. The final minutes were chaotic. Arsenal pressed relentlessly, but Palace stayed organized. Time ticked away. Frustration grew, and when the final whistle blew, the reactions said it all. Arsenal players stood still, hands on hips, staring at the pitch. Crystal Palace players celebrated like they had won something significant, because in many ways they had. This 1-1 draw feels heavy for Arsenal. It's not just about the dropped points, it's about the message it sends in a title race where margins are razor thin. Dominance without ruthlessness can be punished. Control without a second goal leaves the door open. These are the kinds of games champions find a way to win, even when things aren't perfect. For Crystal Palace, this result feels empowering. Away from home, against one of the league's strongest sides, they showed resilience, discipline, and belief. They proved that with the right structure and mindset, you can survive pressure and still hurt top teams. This point could be massive for their confidence moving forward. Tactically, Arsenal will look back at this match and ask difficult questions. Was the tempo high enough after scoring? Were substitutions made early enough to change the rhythm? Did they manage the game with the maturity required at this stage of the season? These are not criticisms driven by emotion, but reflections that often define seasons. Crystal Palace, meanwhile, executed their game plan almost perfectly. They accepted suffering. They trusted the process. And when their moment came, they took it without hesitation. That's football at its most raw and honest. In the end, Arsenal versus Crystal Palace finished 1-1. But emotionally, it felt like two very different outcomes. One team left feeling they lost something. The other left feeling they gained belief. And that contrast is what makes football so powerful. One night, 90 minutes, and two very different stories written under the same floodlights. For Arsenal fans, this match will linger. For Palace fans, it will be remembered as a night of courage. And for everyone watching, it was a reminder that the Premier League never gives you anything for free. This is Soccer Spender, where football isn't just about goals, it's about moments, mentality, and the stories that stay with us long after the whistle blows.